is Doug Howard from Growth Team Strategies, and I'm here with Kathi Fleck, one of our esteemed consultants. And we're here with Selling the Dream, which is our weekly podcast about the ideas behind what it takes to sell a business, things you need to do to make your business more sellable, and how you can prepare for what is a pretty challenging proposition, but can be very rewarding if you get it right. So, Kathi, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Doug. How about yourself?
I'm having a ball. I'm having a really good time. I got Abe Lincoln sitting on my shoulder right there. So, I feel like I've got some backup if things go awry.
A sailboat on the other side?
Yeah. Sailboat, something about winning. Another one with a hockey player, little guy by the name of Bobby Orr, who was a Boston Bruin. Of course, I grew up in Boston. So, yeah, we got all kinds of just inspirational stuff going on behind us. So let's see if we can have some inspirational stuff coming from, the guy in front, right? That would be good.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. All right. So today we're going to talk about additional revenue streams that can be created or can be at least prepared for so that when someone buys the business, they may be able to take the business in some new directions. Big thing a buyer is always looking for is what's that revenue stream going to be? Is there going to be some fall off from people that, knew the current owner and just, because of that, they don't do business with the company anymore? Or maybe they have designs on a bigger company or a company that's going to do some different things. So let's talk about that. So what are your thoughts on that, Kathi, about additional revenue streams, things that a buyer might be intrigued to buy?
Mm-hmm. I do think it's beneficial to have the recurring revenue if that's possible. Not
Yep.
everybody does. I did not, but I think it's possible. And I think to be able to present that to potential buyers gives a great opportunity because then they start seeing that they can have more revenue coming in.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. So when we had our accounting practice, we did bookkeeping and we did taxes. Bookkeeping was relatively consistent. Taxes was a little more volatile because there was a lot of competition for, franchised tax services and people that ran coupons. But the thing that gave us the best recurring part of our valuation was when we added payroll service. And about 2 years before we sold, may have been a little longer than that, 3 years before we sold, we started to brand the payroll service independently of the accounting service itself. And I know in a couple of the markets where we sold, it was very helpful because, people will change who does their taxes. They're less likely to change who does their bookkeeping, but they hate changing who does their payroll. All right. So there's that kind of thing. One of the questions I most like to ask people when they tell me they want to sell their business or they're close to selling their business is, you want to sell in the next couple of years, but if you had 10 more years to go, or if you were 10 years earlier on in your career, if you had tons of energy, you weren't ready to get out of the business, what are some things you would definitely be doing now that you're just not doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. Sometimes I'll hear people say, well, there's another product line that our manufacturer offers, but we don't do much with that line. Or we actually have the territory rights to be in a different part of the state, but I'm not about to go open up another territory at this stage of the game. Mm-hmm. Or, there's this ancillary business that would work really well with ours or some new technology, but I'm not going to make that investment now because I'm looking to get out. And I always love that list because to me, that list is sort of a roadmap for a potential buyer to say, hey, here's some avenues that the existing business owner knows that could represent additional revenue.
Yep. Could be.
Yeah.
And in the remodeling industry, there were some companies that had like a handyman business,
Yeah.
or concierge business, or a membership type program where they would come out once a quarter and do X number of things or X number of hours for people. So there were a lot of different types of programs if you had the staff and the wherewithal to take that and take it a little further.
Sure. And I think there are some things that really can expand not only the revenue for the business, but maybe the perspective of the business as a whole. Like, for instance, if I've got a restaurant that's got 50 tables, right? Even at its peak, there's probably only so much I can do to generate revenue. So I might do some carry out, I might do some events, but the reality is we've seen some people do things like catering And, that's not nearly as limited by the physical size of the building, maybe by the kitchen, although you can usually supplement that. It's more limited by the ability to go get business and how many trucks you put on the road.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think just a little creativity and imagination can help people
Yeah.
fit into another direction, or it might be a question that comes up from some of their clients and asks, can you do, or do you do, or you see that more often. And then when I started my business, I really started it more as handyman and small projects. And then people started asking me to remodel. And so I found that that was a much better model for the company and for me. Bigger projects, using my design background and more the clientele that I wanted versus all these little small jobs that were coming up. But a lot of times people could go the opposite way.
Yeah. So, Kathy, if someone came to you, let's say they weren't in the remodeling business, they were in some other business, and they were like, that makes sense to me, but how would I go about starting to think about that? What do you think of some things that we might kind of suggest for them to do to kind of identify where some of these opportunities may lie?
Well, just off the top of my head, either polling staff or their clients to see what kinds of services they would like.
Yeah.
Look at the competition. If the competition is doing a certain giving a certain service, I mean, I've seen lots of creative ideas from restaurants that you would never even think that people would end up going. And I can't think of what they are offhand, but I have seen them. I thought, well, that's really clever to go and turn that business around more to their liking and increase it. There's sometimes a whole different business model that will take place, or like you say, additional trucks or additional staff. So it is almost like another little mini business.
Yeah. One of the things I always like to do is look to our customer base. We already have a customer base.
Hmm.
What else are they spending money on? And what are those things that are related to maybe some of the things we have the capability to do, right? So I know a lot of people, like for instance, in the construction world, look at things now like landscaping and outdoor patios and furniture and all this other stuff. And it's really not the world they were in, but it's really where those same customers are also spending money. And if you can build on that trust and faith that they have in the organization, some of that stuff can be really, really powerful.
It can, yes. And you see some smaller companies like HVAC that'll pick up electrical or plumbing. I
Yeah.
know when I first started, I decided that would be a good idea to put up Christmas lights at Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So interestingly, I partnered with somebody else, and we actually ended up breaking even when I looked at how we split everything in our finances. Did not pick it up again because it was a lot more work than I thought, and didn't really flow very well with the
Yeah,
business. You never know. You could try something here and there.
sure. I didn't appreciate the challenges of putting up Christmas lights until I had an office in Arizona and saw people putting Christmas lights on rather large cactus. And I thought, you got to really know what you're doing before you go hang Christmas lights on a cactus. You know what I'm saying?
You
So,
might be hanging on it.
yeah, I mean, the margin for error. I mean, back east, you might fall off a ladder or something like that, but you're not going to land on a cactus, right? So, just
Either way, it could be hard.
it'd be difficult. Absolutely. Yep. So, yeah, so I think as people are going down that path, it's important. Now, how do you resist the temptation to chase things that aren't going to be good ideas, right? Because, as business owners, we can convince ourselves of lots of things, right? To go chase and spend money on, and
I
that
have
may
seen,
actually make things less sellable.
I've seen that happen too with some of my peers. Yeah, I think it's easy to start chasing those things, and you have to kind of pull yourself back, or have a partner or a mentor that tells you no, don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, I think it's important too that people look at things and realize you don't want to do anything that's going to confuse the message to the public,
True.
right? If we're 15 different things, then that can really water down the marketing message at the same time when we're trying to sell the business, and we need that marketing presence to be as strong as possible, right? So by the time I'm Doug and Kathy remodeling, Doug and Kathy car wash, Doug and Kathy pizza place, it's like it may be that our customers need all of those things, but when someone says, "Well, what is it? What does this business do, and where am I making my money?" Right? That can be interesting.
Yeah.
I also found, even with the accounting practice, that sometimes being able to segment things can give you more value, but maybe not to the same buyer. Like, for instance, in one of our markets, one company bought the payroll service, and because the buyer didn't want to do payroll. I thought that was a mistake, but that was their choice. But we actually had two different transactions where the payroll company sold and the rest of the business sold. So sometimes there's opportunities for that kind of situation as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the bottom line comes down to, it's important just to always remember that when that buyer's, looking at a business and trying to evaluate what's going on and what it's going to look like for them, they're definitely interested in the revenue sources, but I think they're also definitely interested in how predictable this is as well. So I like the idea of kind of painting that roadmap. I've had some people say, you know what, I'd move the office location. I'm not going to move it now, but the traffic flows have changed, or the demographics have changed, and we should really maybe be in a place that's more visible or whatever. And it's like, those kinds of things. And I've even done stuff with folks where we've looked at, and I think we even talked about this a little bit when we had your business and when you were looking to sell, about the idea of just even identifying maybe possible locations where they could go if they weren't going to be your location, right?
I think anything to make the buyer more comfortable with making the purchase and giving them opportunities that they could choose to do sometime down the road just makes it a lot more viable.
Yeah. A lot of the ideas that we know would be potentially beneficial are just things that when we're coming down the home stretch, we're just not going to put the time or the effort or the money into. But for someone that wants to come in, that can be a really, I think, a positive thing for them. So, yeah, but I think that's an analysis that every business owner should do. And I think that's true of even maybe some strategic partnerships. Again, that may be something that a current business owner hasn't done, but somebody else may say, hey, you know what? If we partnered with this group, or if we focused on this, area or industry, that could really open up some things as well. The good thing is, I always tell people that, on some level, because of the energy and because of the stage of the business they're at, buyers generally think they're going to be able to do some things with the business that the seller hasn't done.
And they may, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times they do. But it's nice if the seller can kind of steer them in the right direction to say, yeah, I didn't do those things, but I can give you kind of a running start to say, these are the things that I do if I was at that stage of the game.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully folks are out there thinking about this, thinking about making their businesses more sellable. Much like everything else we talk about, these kinds of ideas are easier to develop and to bring to fruition when we start earlier and we have more time, right? It's hard to change the face of the business or outline different things when we're talking about something in 2 months, as opposed to a couple of years. But in any case, I think just providing that roadmap for the buyer, whether they choose to pursue those things or not, is a value add, right? It's just something else that could be part of how they benefit from buying the business.
I agree.
All right. Well, Kathi, thanks so much for hanging out with me and for sharing this information. And I'm waiting to hear from the thousands of business owners that are now thinking about selling their businesses and, looking at great opportunities once those businesses get sold. And, much like you and I and some of the other members of the growth team, it's kind of fun when you get that primary business and you build it and you sell it. And now it's like, well, now there's just lots of things that we can do, right? Or at the very least, we can give other people ideas about what they might do.
It is a lot of fun. It's always good hanging out with you too, Doug.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Kathi Fleck and Doug Howard, Selling the Dream. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Selling the Dream podcast, starring Doug Howard and Kathi Fleck. Both Doug and Kathi have built and sold successful businesses and hope this podcast will help other small business owners do the same. Tune in every week to hear more tips for increasing the value of your company so you get the highest return for your years of hard work when it comes time to sell or transition your business. Can't wait till next week? Check out our website for more information at www.growththemes.com.